Hey everyone, I'm Gonzo. This is Mark. We're a dungeon class, and today we're talking about no rest for the weary. Mark,
Gonzo.
you built the greatest dungeon ever possible.
I did.
Yes, you've got trap after trap, encounter after encounter, and at the end you've got this biggest bad guy ready to decimate the party.
It's perfect. It's gonna go
And
well.
yeah, no, it's not. They're frolicking through the dungeon.
What?
Yeah, they're just frolicking through. They're dancing.
Frolicking. I shouldn't be frolicking through my dungeon. What am I going to do about that?
Yeah,
what is the?
they're
why?
dancing.
How are they dancing through
They're
my?
bent over
beautiful
laughing at the big bad guy.
How are they finding it so easy? What is the problem?
It's because of the short rests.
Short rest.
We need to talk about short rest.
Short rest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what? So the problem with short rest, from my experience, is it takes away from the tension. You want to keep the tension up in the game, and short rests can be abused, especially by people who are, say, veteran players. I think they know kind of how to play the system. We kind of all do it with video games. You know you're going to have a big fight. You rest up. You get all your hit points topped off. You gather some healing potions and all those kind of things, that's kind of normal. But
Yeah.
when they do it again and again and again, it just kind of makes things so much easier.
It can.
It
can be so frustrating as a dungeon master if you're trying to keep the tension up and they're able to break it up by short rest after short rest. Now, short rest in the player's handbook is talking about if you can rest, in a safe spot for an hour or so, you basically are gathering your breath, maybe, recovering your wounds a little bit, and you can use your hit dice to recover hit points to your player, and you also regain spell slots. For most of those classes, you regain some of your feats, some of your abilities as a player.
Right.
I know as a halfling, you have the lucky feat where you can re-roll a 1.
Right.
And you get to regain that. So that can really break the tension up in the game.
Right.
And we're trying to figure out today, how can we change that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have a few solutions, and the first thing I want to say is really if you can kind of maintain the idea of no safe space. I think what sometimes tends to happen is that players kind of establish this thing where we'll find a safe place, we're going to have a short rest here, they wall themselves into a room and block the door, and we're going to have a short rest. So as a dungeon master, you need to kind of maybe break that up occasionally. So what are some ways we can break that up?
Yeah, if you notice if that's happening in your game, it's time to pull out your dice and roll on a random monster encounter.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of those in the Dungeon Master's Guide, or you can make one up yourself. You can
a lot of them, yeah.
You can already have some things in mind that would naturally fit within your encounter. Whatever you're doing, it doesn't have to be a dungeon.
Right.
You could be out in the woods just camping and saying, "Oh, we're going to take a lunch break for an hour, regain our, a pack of." Werewolves walk in on you and want what you're eating for lunch.
Yeah, that didn't go well.
Including you guys.
Yeah, so much for your short rest. Yeah. So that's good. That breaks up that short rest. And it establishes the idea that, especially like in a dungeon, is there really going to be a safe place in the dungeon? I mean, especially if it's a dungeon that's designed to kill people, is there really going to be a safe space? Oh, we'll just rest here, take a while, So as a DM, you can do things to break that up. So, like say in a dungeon, what could you do to break that up?
Well, if you don't just have a wandering monster come by, but you could also have the environment play an issue or traps or anything. Sand starts spilling into the room. You sat on a pressure plate, and now sand's coming. Oh crud! We got to move on. We've got to get out of here. Or figure
now
out
you're inside a trap. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Or even outside a dungeon.
Yeah.
An environment. If
That's
you
right.
could, like you mentioned, we were talking earlier about the idea of being on a ship. All of a sudden, I'm going to take a short rest, and guess what? A big storm comes up. And that interrupts your thing.
Yeah, no one's manning the ship because everyone's fighting for control of it, and your timer basically is that you've got to take it back over so you can control the ship and keep it from flipping over or whatever.
Exactly.
Anything that helps to keep the tension moving or keep it on a higher strung, tightly wound wire. You do want to give breaks because you don't want to have a. Have you ever watched a movie where the action scene is so long you're almost like sweating a little bit and you're
gasping for a break?
Gasping for breath. And they're pretty good, these professional movie makers, at breaking the tension with a joke. Whether it's the Hulk punching Thor or something like that.
Right.
Because that's a great thematic way to do things, and it really works in the storytelling part of Dungeons and Dragons as well.
Yeah, and another idea is to move up the fight, like the idea of them preparing for the big bad evil guy and all that. Do you really think if that guy is really a big bad evil guy, he's going to sit back and just wait for that to happen? There's a good chance that he might just say, "I'm going to attack now," So that timer, it's not like they're going to wait. No one agreed to fight tomorrow at noon in the dungeon, so that can move up. So you can move that battle up, and the battle comes to them before they're ready for it.
I feel like Curse of Strahd was really good at that because Strahd, and as a dungeon master, you learn you can have him appear whenever you want. He could be in the mist, he could be in the forest, he could be in the form of a wolf, and you can kind of have him come in and out. And what better way than if the players are taking advantage of, rest after rest. And again, we're talking about higher level players, more experienced players who are a little bit of metagaming. If you feel it's breaking the fun of the game, this is when you'd want to take advantage of changing it up. Another way you could do it is using some of the options in a Dungeon Master's Guide, and that's basically change the mechanic of a short rest. The way it's set up in the Player's Handbook is that I believe it's 1 hour is a short rest, a long rest is 8 hours. And that's not doing anything real physical other than eating something, licking your wounds, and resting or whatever.
Licking your wounds.
Well, if you're a half unicorn like your character or something like that. But you can change that mechanic. It has an option in there. You can go from regular mode to hard mode by saying, at your session 0 is, oh, by the way, in this adventure or for this campaign, short rest is actually 7 hours of rest. So it's basically an overnight, and you need to sleep a part of that. And a long rest is 7 days, or something like that. 8 hours, 7 days is a long rest, and that actually seems a little more realistic, because if you happen to get a couple arrows in you and that kind of stuff, even with a cleric and our magical potions and everything,
I need an hour to rest and pull this thing out, and I'll be good to go.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it, but I do picture. When we talk about tension in a movie, I picture the Iron Man movie, and Jarvis is telling him that the power level in his suit that's already beat up and whatnot is winding down. You're at 6%, and he's like, keep going, give me more power. You're at 3%, and that really builds tension in you watching the movie, because not only is he dealing with what he's dealing with, but also his suit's about to power down.
And that scene would have been a lot different if he'd said, you just plugged in and went up to 100 and go,
you're at 100% again. Okay, thanks.
Tension. That wasn't so dangerous after all.
Right.
So, all right. As always, if you like our content here and like to get more, make sure that you subscribe and hit the like button. We'd like to hear in the comments any ideas you have for breaking up the short rest game, so to speak, or sometimes whether you agree with having short rest. I know some people have talked about taking the short rest out altogether, and if you've got another idea of how to deal with that, please comment below. We'd like to hear your comments, and we get great suggestions from our viewers, so we really like that. So Gonzo, I think that's all we have time for today. And with that,
class dismissed.